My name is Victor Guerra. I am the Senior Counsel for Illicit Trade Prevention for Latin America, Canada, and the United States. And we will have the great opportunity to interview today Mr. Carlos Moreira. The World Economic Forum estimates that more than US dollars 2.2 trillion, 3% of the global GDP was lost due to illicit trade in 2020. Euromonitor International also reports that the COVID-19 resulted in a growth of illicit trade, including the tobacco industry. The pandemic has also served to reroute the flows of illicit trade and open new opportunities for criminals. That include not only the massive online shopping and the usage of the dark web, but also other type of technologies. Having said that, I will talk today with Mr. Carlos Moreira about the role of technology on countering illicit trade. And as the fourth industrial revolution that we are living, we know that artificial intelligence, the Internet of Things, and the big data are some of the main technological things that we will looking around in the today and in the future. Carlos is a former diplomat, an entrepreneur, an academic, a married guy, and a family guy. And I really appreciate to have the opportunity to talk with Carlos today.
Thank you very much, Victor, for your nice and kind words. And it's a pleasure for me to be with you on this broadcast. So, as you say, illicit trade is nearly a $3 trillion problem, 3 to 5% of the global economy, not only on the money we lose, but also the money they make. We have to understand that illicit trade is the bank account of the bad guys. So everything which is from terrorists to human slavery to abuses on all societal issues are being financed by the illicit trade. When I do and give seminars on illicit trade and counterfeiting in particular, and I explain young kids on or millennials that buying a Louis Vuitton bag is actually no cool, because you're financing the underworld and you're giving them money that can be then used to destroy societies. So then you start to build some kind of ownership and responsibility, which I think is essential. The only way we can reduce and one day maybe hopefully neutralize illicit trade is by teaching the consumers the consequences of buying illicit products, right? It's the same thing on the drug business. While there's drug demand, there's going to be drug offer, right? So illicit trade happens in the same way. So the technologies are converging, and as I mentioned before, illicit trade, because they are very well funded, because they can get a lot of money by doing wrong things, and they have no accountability. They don't have to pay royalties. They don't have to finance IP. They don't have to finance research. Obviously, it's huge profit, right? When you just sell a product after copying that product without paying the cost of developing that product, the profit margins are phenomenal. And that money is now being invested in technology, because when we think technology, we always say, okay, only the good guys have technology. No, actually, the illicit trade underworld is using technology. You just need to go to the dark web and as we do as a cybersecurity company, we bring our clients to the dark web and we show them how they are being exploited, how their data is being used, how their credit card's number has been stolen and resold, how cryptocurrencies are being used to finance illicit trade transactions. So there is no identity tracking back to the origin, because, as you know, the dark web is anonymous. When things are anonymous, they get very, 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 very nasty. Illicit trade is not being viewed in some countries as a major issue. It's like corruption. They say, oh, but this is the way it works here. I mean, you have to pay commissions to the guy in the custom so they can accelerate the import of my product, or you have to pay commissions to this and this in order to make the government activities less slow and more effective. And they believe that contributing that money is part of the deal. It's part of the, obviously it's totally wrong. And we have to tell them, no, actually this is wrong. You cannot do that, because by doing that, you are just incrementing the complexity, and you are incrementing the capability of these parties to basically destroy your economy. So what we are able to do now, and I think this is a good point, is interconnect the causes and effects of illicit trade. So illicit trade has components of underworld corruption. It has components of counterfeiting trade. Counterfeiting luxury products. In Switzerland, we protect watches, right? WISeKey has been protecting watches for years. We have now something like 2.5 million watches protected, so it becomes very difficult to counterfeit it. But we have something like 250 million watches being counterfeited, right? Rolex, for every Rolex you produce, you have maybe 5,000 copies of that Rolex in countries that they have been. So how to stop that? Obviously, technology can be added. You can insert technology into those objects to make it track and traceable, but it requires a very strong commitment from governments and third party and international organizations and the UN particularly, and the work PMI IMPACT is doing, because that's one of the reasons I'm there, because it's a concrete action oriented work with accountability on how that work is being executed that will reduce what we believe is a major issue. I think the proportion of illicit trade economy will continue growing. But the good news is that technology that protects consumers is also improving, and consumers' consciousness on illicit trade is now much better than it was maybe 5 to 10 years ago.
I would like to pose two more questions to you in this arena. The first one will be if you consider that there are specific sectors of the society, if I should say, countries that are more, more fragile in this situation. They are more exposed to the illicit trade. There is any specific targets for the illicit economies, or is a global issue? This is the first one, and the second one that I would like to address with you is the pandemic. How the pandemic has been impacting, this situation. So for me, these are the two things that I would like to ask you.
Absolutely. The segmentation of illicit trade, I would say, is proportionally around the world. The number of illicit trade activities is not subject to whether the country is poor or rich. It is actually different. In a poor country, illicit trade will target very basic commodities. In a sophisticated country, illicit trade will handle financial transactions, the possibility of doing crypto money laundering in cryptocurrencies. So I always say that, I mean, and again, this is a bit maybe a philosophical position, but humans, we have, regardless where we come from or the nationality we have, we also all have a proportion of potential corruption capabilities in ourselves. But you can corrupt a Swiss banker as the same way you can corrupt a custom official in Colombia, right? So I think what is happening is that poor countries that do not have option to buy products because, for instance, they are too expensive or they are full of identity and trademark protections. Obviously, they have always the tendency to say, okay, counterfeiting or illicit trade is a poverty alleviation angle. I mean, I am doing that for the good of my country because my country cannot afford to buy the original Rolex. Why can I buy the copy of the Rolex, right? So that mentality is happening in countries without rule of law, means that the country itself don't have a clear rule of law that says, no, actually it's not. If you don't have the money to buy a Rolex, you should not buy a fake because you are actually using intellectual property that does not belong to you. So that notion is more obviously in developing countries with a very low GDP, countries that they have problems in increasing the consumption capability of their consumer. This problem then in developed countries where they are obviously rule of law in place, and this is not possible. You cannot just counterfeit a Rolex in Geneva because Rolex in Geneva. So, but doesn't mean for that reason there is no corruption. Corruption then moves to other sectors where they are less regulated. For instance, now we are realizing that it's a huge corruption happening in the crypto world. I mean, crypto world, it's now $1.7 trillion economy, growing every month. You see what is happening now with the cryptocurrency, all of them reaching record. And suddenly the cryptocurrencies, they are not yet regulated, means countries do not have the possibility to use the rule of law to protect against abuses. And then they are basically letting corruption happen and letting run things happening. Obviously, new technology, new regulations are coming, like KYC compliance, for know your customer, for banks, using regulatory process to avoid a possibility of clean or laundering money. But that takes time. Technology moves faster than legislation. So the gap between the technology expanding and offering new mechanisms to the time regulation will catch up and be there to provide the right protection is always between 2 and 3 years. And there's where the corruption, the illicit trade happens during that buffer, right? COVID is an interesting issue here, despite the fact that obviously we have now 3 million people that have died and many families suffering on these terrible pandemic consequences. But COVID is bringing what we call a digital transformation acceleration process. It means the world is moving towards, we need to digitally transform ourselves. And the reason is because they have realized that countries with a strong digital transformation strategy in place, they have been able to cope, defend, and resolve the pandemic in a much better way and with a more efficient processes than countries didn't have digital transformation. So during my career, I had been always trying to convince countries to invest in technology, in digitalization, to move into automation, to provide high-end technology. But before the attitude was, okay, yeah, maybe let's wait and see. Or yeah, I'm going to put some money there. Or yes, this is an important thing, but I am very busy with other things. After COVID, this has become the major concern of the CEO of the company, of the board of directors of the company. Then they are realizing that their companies need to go to digital transformation. It's also the number one priority to ministers, the Minister of Economy, Minister of Innovation of many countries. They are all now focused in accelerating digital transformation. One important point, although, to know also that COVID is also an illicit trade problem. Now, for first time, we are realizing that there are millions of vaccines that are fake vaccines, millions of certificates of COVID are fake, millions of certificates of vaccination are fake. So that means that we are already entering into this. Do you want to buy a fake vaccine certificate? You pay me $5 and I get you one, and you can download that from the internet. Obviously, it is important, again, to educate the young people and the societies that doing that is as bad as buying a fake Rolex, but you are contributing to the problem rather than solving the problem.
I really like very much the message that you posted saying, regardless of the level of the economy of a country, that the difference is that in a rich country, you might be doing illicit trade of luxury goods like Rolex, for example, but in other countries that are less less developed, let's put it this way, that will go for other type of basic goods, I will say. So the COVID-19 has been showing that where are the needs of the consumers. If the needs of the consumers are right now on PPEs or health sanitary equipments, vaccines, then the criminal organizations will go for it and will post it to the availability of consumers. So it's very interesting, how the needs somehow will mark up the trend on the consumption. And once again, what you said about the education and raising awareness, I think that's key. That's key in anything that we do. Now that we're talking about technology, I think it's also important to post some information about the WISeKey. What is WISeKey? What WISeKey does for people?
Yeah, so WISeKey is the I would say is the visible part of a very, very big iceberg, and that is all my career, right? Because contrary to entrepreneurs that just create company for the sake of creating company, I created company as a process that I started when I was in the UN. So when I started in the UN, I realized very young, I was one of the youngest experts in the UN, and I was expert in technology at the time, and there was not a lot of technology in the UN. So when I was realizing at that time that all the innovation that was done on technology was actually not including the human. The human was not there. Even the web. The web started in Geneva. I was part of the very, very early team that started to work with the web after it was invented by Tim Berners-Lee with the CERN here in Geneva. And we were the first node in the UN, and we were starting to use the web as the major innovation. But even there, we realized that humans were not part of the architect. There was no coded. The web doesn't know what a human is. The web doesn't know the difference between a human or a dog or a chair or a computer, right? So if you project, and that was 33 years ago, if you project that, you say, wow, if this gets very big and all the computers on Earth, all trillions of objects will connect to the internet, everything will connect to the internet as is happening now, where is going to be humans? Where is the role of humans? And if that exponentiality happens, we're actually going to be disrupted. The web destiny is actually to replace humans. That's why it was created for, right? Originally. So at that time, we say, wow, I need to develop some technology that will protect humans. So we are not going to be disrupted by technology. And this is the subject of the Transhuman Code bestseller, which is in the United States, is to say, we still have the time to embed the humanity on the architecture. It's like an AI algorithm. If an AI algorithm is programmed to destroy humans, because they're exponential, they're going to be very successful in doing so. So we need to stop that process by injecting the human identity into the platform. And there's where I started in the UN. We developed some pilot projects. Then obviously the UN is good for standardization, but not for execution. I decided to leave the UN. I was 40 at that time, and I said, look, I'm going to create a startup. I did create a startup. WISeKey means World Internet Secure Key. So actually the key of the human to access the internet. So the vision was, I need a key. Without a key, I cannot drive my car. I cannot open my house. I cannot do anything. So the human need a key, and that key should be under the control of a human. So this was countercurrent. That was against Facebook, Google, and all these guys that they say, hey, forget about humans. Let's make you a product. Let's monetize you. Let's convert you into a product so platforms can sell the product. In our view was, no. Humans needs to have the consent under their control, and that consent should be owned by humans. So I can eventually give consent on my data, but if I don't give consent anymore, the data is mine. Consent is a human characteristic. It's like if I invite you to come in to have a dinner in my house tonight, you will be much welcome to come, but it's not because I did invite you tonight and you are going to come in every single night, right? Every invitation is based on consent, and consent can be provided and can be retrieved. But the internet doesn't have that technology. So that's the technology that WISeKey developed, which is a combination between digital identity for humans, is a combination between credentials, authentication, where you can add your credentials, like health credential, like political credentials, like business credentials. And then you have the capability to analyze the data under the user content. Now, as I said before, the criminals abuse on technologies as well. You have also equivalent companies like WISeKey on the dark web, and they sell fake identities, they sell fake certificate. And this is where you have to be very careful that consumer needs to make the difference. I mean, we cannot educate the world, and the world needs to make the difference between the people that do the right thing and the people that do the wrong thing. The good news is that the regulatory environment is now awakening to that, and you have now legislation like in Europe, like eIDAS, which is a strong legislation of the European Union that goes in the direction of WISeKey by providing people with a digital identity and objects with a digital identity. So that's why it is essential in countries that they are moving into regulation like the European Union, and they make investment in protecting themselves against what is always going to be an endless fight between the people that they want to do harm and the people that they want to defend that harm.
I would like to ask you two things. is something missing still on the regulatory side? Do you think that governments and economic blocks are working in silos? There is a need maybe for to foster more collaboration between the different economic blocks. And having said that, what is missing? What is still missing in this arena?
Yeah, I mean, regulations are some cases a good thing, like GDPR, EIDAS, the position of the United Nations in terms of protecting personal data consumer. The only problem, as I mentioned before, between the rule of law and the application of the rule of law, it takes a while, right? And technology, because it's exponential, what you are regulating today maybe it's not there anymore. It's something else, right? It really happened with data and AI. We are still regulating data. That's what we are doing now. But actually, data is not the issue anymore. The issue now is AI. And we are at the very beginning of even being able to grasp the complexity of regulating AI. Because why? Because these billions of dollars being invested on AI by multiple multinationals that they don't bother whether this is going to be regulated or not. They want to be the first one to control this massive, powerful technology because they want to make profit on it. So it's a the decalage between what regulators are able to grasp and convert into law to what companies can do. So in order to make this efficient, you need a social responsibility from the enterprises themselves. I mean, WISeKey should not be the only one that says, I should not data mine humans. That should be Facebook doing that. That should be Twitter doing that. That should be Apple doing that. That should be everybody. But they are not doing it. Why they are not doing it, with exception on Apple, which is the most serious on this category, is because they are making money out of that. I mean, their business model is based on monetizing data of humans. So until we don't regulate that business model, and that's what we can do, we can tell to them, sorry guys, from now on, you cannot sell personal data of humans without their consent. Should only do what we are doing in Europe, which I think is a good step, is that we are telling these companies that if you want to do business in Europe and you are just breaking Europe outside the global internet, which has no borders or boundaries, you are subject to national law, and as a consequence, you will have to adapt your technologies to be in compliance with national laws. Otherwise, you will not be able to sell in your territory. There is where regulation, enforcement, and technology mix. And this is where you could start to see very concrete steps. So this thinking of adapting your business process with regulatory limitations in a country and reinforce them is the way to go.
That we have been working on the needs of collaboration and the role play not only by the law enforcement and the public sector, but also by the private sector. I didn't mention that in the introduction, but you have been one of the founder and members of the United Nations Global Compact, and exactly on that effort, assessing the role of the businesses, not only recognizing the human rights, but actually having an active role in the protection of the human rights. And having said that, we have the honor to count with you as a member of the expert council of PMI IMPACT, which is this Philip Morris International initiative to invest money in projects and actions and concrete programs, right, on countering illicit trade and transnational crime. I would like to hear from you your experience at PMI IMPACT, the key things, the key learnings that you have been seeing in the two previous rounds that we have been posted at PMI IMPACT, and what are your expectations in the upcoming third funding round that will be open this year?
Absolutely. When I was invited by PMI to join the PMI IMPACT Council, one of the three things that really attracted me, one first was the vision statement, right? Because for me, having a company like PMI with your legacy business entering into some concrete activities to reduce illicit trade at the global level by bringing multi-stakeholders in a very, I would say, pragmatic way. It was something that I didn't see anywhere else. So I said, okay, this is a different. It's It's not one of those lobbies that you get just there because they like to talk. These guys, they are committing resources, they are committing money, they are committing expertise, they're committing staff to really have a fight. The other thing was the board itself. I mean, it's a very prestigious board. You have Luis, which was the major persecutor in the world with the International Criminal Court. You have the previous Secretary General of the United Nations Commission for Human Rights. So they are judges. They are people that they have dedicated their entire life to protect and protect the rule of law and fight in a very pragmatic way this problem that we all have. So for me, it was like saying, okay, I'm going to help with my technology. They know more than I do on illicit trade. They have spent their life there. I might have a bit more knowledge and experience about technology. And because technology is exponential, with their knowledge, I will be able to accelerate the work of the PMI impact and render that work more effective and something that we can monitor progress, right? That we can go every year and say, okay, did we really improve it? And if we did, where and how? And we can have some kind of fact-finding process among ourselves. So we are sure that we are doing the right thing. Another thing is the ecosystem of grantees. So PMI Impact analyzes many dossiers around the world of companies that they want to receive funding, and they send to us, to the committee, their plans, their business plans, their ideas, their technology innovation. So you have people fighting, developing technology to identify illicit trade inside of the dark web. So those are very interesting technologies, like a Google searching inside the dark web. That's one of the candidates I looked last year. Or people developing interconnectiveness to have maps where you can see where the money goes. If you buy the Rolex in one country, where the money goes, and you see that in a map. So all that amazing ecosystem, this is the same way the World Economic Forum works, right? Brings multi-stakeholders from university, entrepreneurs, politicians, celebrities sometimes, that they are all devoted to specific causes, and they bring them together into kind of a laboratory model so we can cross-fertilize our ideas and experience. And that's what you find on that. So I was astonished about the quality of the products and the projects that they are being presented. Some of them obviously has been selected, and now we are entering into the next forthcoming funding round, where we're going to be interviewing more candidates. This PMI Impact process is so important. Together with the educational process, PMI Impact is doing events, conferences, with the governance forum in Marrakesh. We had been discussing. We went to Norway with the Nobel Prize Committee on Peace, Peace for Technology. We made presentation. So we are also enlisting other forces there that can complement the work of the Council and make our work more efficient and more international.
Thank you, Carlos. Times really flies. I cannot believe, how much information, valuable information you have been sharing with us. I like very much in this section of the podcast regarding this collaboration between public and private sector and the PMI impact. I like very much what you said about the creation of an ecosystem, of a networking on information and efforts from different companies, from different sectors, in fighting illicit trade. All are clear about the impact that the illicit trade has today in the global economy. It's terrible to say that there are losses of billions of dollars or other currencies in tax revenues and of course money that is not invested therefore in education, in health, especially nowadays with the pandemic. How much money do we need to really recover our economies and to invest in the health of our people? Then as a second closing statement that I will make here is, how you create this amazing linkage between technology, yes, is absolutely critical, but that should serve the human beings and your personal commitment on the human rights protections. And that's exactly what you do at WISeKey, having, that the importance of IDs, of consent, to use A, B, or C services, or to get some goods. I think that's an amazing melange between and balance between the usage of technology and the respect of the human being. The statement that you made about this is the illicit trade and the criminal has a portfolio of goods. So in some cases, you might be talking about luxury goods like Rolex, for example, or other kind of luxury goods, but depends on the needs the criminal will be able to offer consumers if they are not enough educated, and if they don't have the resources to get the legitimate and the genuine product. Well, they will offer those different type of goods depending on the needs. And that has been also the experience during the pandemic, how the criminal has been using, okay, they saw the needs on sanitary equipment, on vaccine, etc. So they also open that type of offer in the illicit portfolio. So
my vision is always very simple: is that we are humans, we are all humans. So we need to protect ourselves. There's no point that we do things against ourselves. So it should be an easy decision to do things that will protect human, will protect our kids, and will protect future generation. And those things start by maintaining a sustainable world. If illicit trade is one of the largest contributor to pollution, to all sorts of abuses of sustainability, by taking materials from woods and they are not restricted, by slavering people, by don't pay them salaries, so illicit trade goes against humanity. As some invasive technology goes against humanity. And we are in this generation that we cannot allow that to happen anymore, because, as I say, we are getting singularity moment that's going to happen in a few years. When singularity reaches there, which is one computer is more intelligent than we are, there is a situation that we have to say, okay, where are we going to be slaves of the technology? And so this is the last generation that we need to take things very serious and protect the human. As I always say, technology is like fire. It can warm your house, but it can burn your house, depending how you use it, right? So it is the endeavor of the society to protect humanity. We have the tools to do it. We have been doing that for 200 million years, so we should be continue doing that. But we have a very important aspect of it, which is illicit trade and its consequences everywhere, that needs to be understood, needs to be reduced, and in the future maybe even neutralized. And technology might help, but not only technology, humanity will help, and the use of the human instinct to protect yourself.
Thank you, Carlos. It has been really a pleasure and an honor having this conversation with you. You are certainly one of the pioneer, an amazing representative of the online and cryptocurrency and all these novel technologies representative. I really appreciate your time. I really appreciate the clarity and the honesty on your messages. So thank you very much on behalf of Philip Morris International.
Thank you very much, Victor.